The clock is ticking. Sequence 65. At Ella. A month later she woke to the ring of her phone. She sat groggily up in her bed to take the call. "Hello," she said sleepily. "Morning, babe." The familiar voice spoke on the other end of the line. "Hey my love," she yawned loudly. "How was your night?" he asked. "Fine. You are up already?" "Of course. Isn't it too early, babe?" "It's 8 in the morning." "It's 8?" she asked, surprised. She felt as if she hadn't been sleeping for long. "Yes it is, and I called to remind you that we are supposed to be in court by 10. "Oh Lord, I seriously thought it was 6. "Lazy bum," she laughed. "It's the baby who's making me lazy. I am a strong woman, remember." "Oh please. Just wake up." "Okay, I am waking up now. I won't be late, I promise." "Okay, I will be picking you up at 9. "Sure. I love you. I love you even more." She hung up the phone and rolled out of bed, rubbing her eyes to the brightness. She walked into the bathroom and sat on the toilet. Then she flushed the toilet and washed her hands. Afterwards she hopped into the shower. About 20 minutes later, she walked out of the bathroom and dried herself. She dressed quickly, knowing that Chard would be picking her up shortly. She didn't bother applying makeup ever since she got pregnant. She preferred to be natural. When she was done, she grabbed her handbag and walked out of the room. Blessing stood at the stove preparing some breakfast. "Morning, Auntie." "Hey, morning. Did you sleep well?" she asked. "Breakfast will be ready in a few minutes." "Okay, I will just check up on Vanessa and the baby." "Okay." A minute later, she knocked on the Vanessa's bedroom door. "Come in." She pushed the door open and walked in. "Morning, sis." "Hey, sis." She had been discharged from the hospital a week ago. "How are you?" "I am fine, and you?" "I am fine." "Hannah is still sleeping." "She was awake. She just slept." "Okay. Ready for court?" "Yes, though I am nervous. I feel sorry for them, especially Chrissy and Emma. Life in jail is not child's play." "I know, but justice must prevail." "Yes. I wish I could come with you." "Your health comes first. I will update you." "Okay. Let me go and have my breakfast before Chard arrives." "Sure." When she walked back into the kitchen, Blessing had already finished setting the table. She pulled a chair back and sat down. "Blessing, please tell Tess to hurry. We will be leaving for court soon." "Okay." There was a knock at the door at precisely 9 o'clock. When she opened the door, Chard was there, looking handsome as usually in a t-shirt and jeans. "Hey," she leaned in and kissed him. "Ready?" "Yep." "Tess, you will find us in the car." "Okay." Taking her hand in his, he walked her towards the gate where he had parked his car. Trinity was over at Maya's house with Theo. *****. They entered the courtroom locked arm in arm. Today was the day that the jury would give their verdict. The courtroom was once again filled to capacity. Her mother, Claire, and Auntie Debbie were already in. Her auntie gave her a reassuring smile while her mother frowned at her. They took their seats behind the defense table next to Jericho and his sisters. A moment later, Thomas, Emma, Chrissy and Max were brought in by their usual attendants and the room got quiet. They all watched as the jury came in one at a time till all 10 came in and sat down. "All rise." Judge Malunga walked in, looking majestic in her judge's robes. The shuffle of feet on the floor followed as everyone sat down. The judge then looked at one of the jurors. "Madam Nakando, has the jury reached a verdict?" He asked. "I have, Your Honor," she responded. The head of juror passed a sheet of paper, the officer who gave it to the judge. Judge Malunga looked at the paper for a moment and then he nodded his head and asked them to proceed. "Will the defense please rise?" she said. They stood up. "We the jury find the defendants, Thomas Phiri, Emma Simwanda, Christina Munga and Max Chikwanda guilty of all charges." The courtroom erupted with cheers. The judge angrily slammed his gavel down on the bench a couple of times to bring the room to some semblance of order. When there was finally order in the courtroom, he declared, "Thomas Phiri, Emma Simwanda, Chrissy Munga and Max Chikwanda, you have been convicted guilty by the jury. You will be taken back to the local jail until the 1/8 of next month when your sentence will be established. Court is adjourned." He slammed his gavel down on the bench once more before walking out. Thomas and his crew were taken out of the room as Maddie's mother sank down in tears. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Let's go, Chard said. He held her hand and walked her to the car park. Maddie, her mother called when she was about to get into the car. She turned. Are you happy with what just happened? She pointed a finger at her scowling. Matt chose not to respond. Answer me, she yelled. I'm sorry, but they brought this on themselves. You even have the guts to answer me like that. She raised her hand to slap her, but Debbie held it. Enough, Asnart. This is not Maddie's fault. It is her fault, Claire said. She could have withdrawn the case and asked her minions to do the same, but she didn't. Maddie shook her head before she turned and got into the car, slamming the door shut. Chard went round and got into the driver's seat. As soon as Tess got in, he sped out of the car park. Asterisk 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 asterisk. A month later, the day of the sentencing arrived sooner than they had all expected. Maddie sat in the courtroom next to Chard. As usual, the crew was brought into the courtroom. Emma's heart was beating wildly against her chest. She prayed the judge would take pity upon her after realizing she was a mother and child needed her. The past few days she had been unable to believe that she had found herself in such a predicament. She had hoped this was a dream that she would wake up from any minute. If she could go back to the day she met Chard, she would just walk away. He had caused her more harm than good. Now she would have to spend many years behind bars, and that killed her. What would become of her son? Would he still remember her by the time she came out? Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Christina dragged her feet as she was escorted into the courtroom. The look on her mother's eyes broke her heart. As if it wasn't enough that she would be spending a lot of years behind bars, she was carrying a bastard. This was all Maddie's fault. If the stupid girl had left Chard, everyone would be happy by now. She took a seat on the cold metal chair, next to Thomas. She was sure he had tried his best to get them out, but in the end, they had lost. Asterisk 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 asterisk. The door creaked, announcing the presence of the bailiff. With his thumbs tucked into his belt, he said, "All rise for the Honorable Judge Anderson Malunga." Everyone stood up. The judge entered and walked to his stand, sitting down and gesturing for the others to do the same. He took a folder which had been placed on the stand and went through its contents. The People vs. Thomas Phiri, Emma Simwanda, Christina Munga and Max Chikwanda. Are all parties present? Yes, Your Honor, the representative said. Thomas Phiri, I'd sentence you to 10 years in prison with no possibility of parole. Murmurs erupted in the courtroom. Thomas kept his head down. He had hoped for a much lesser sentence, but 10 years was too much. Today would be the beginning of a new life for him. He would be leaving the life he had to experience, one of the most undesirable kind of life behind bars. They had all failed him, Maddie especially. He had done everything to be with her, but she had still chosen someone else. He had seen the ring on her finger as he had walked past by her to his seat. He should have killed Chard when he had his chance. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. The judge continued after a few more beats of silence. Emma Sikwanda and Christina Munga, you get 7 years imprisonment with hard labor. He turned to Max. I hereby sentence you to 8 years with no possibility of parole. No, this can't be real, Claire cried. Tears fell down Chrissy's eyes. She looked up at her mother to see tears running down her face. Her hand was on her mouth. She looked so confused. Her mother's throat tightened as she tried to contain the large girth of emotions slowly constricting her breathing. She felt as if she could faint any minute. Shortly after sentencing, they were handcuffed behind their backs. Then they were given a few minutes to say goodbye to their family members before being escorted out to the car which was waiting to take them to their new home. Emma's face twisted in grief. The pain was too much to handle. The world had crushed down on her. Maddie let the tears she had been holding in for a long time drop. Yes, Christina was rebellious and all, but she didn't deserve what was happening. Asterisk asterisk. As she was being led away by the officer, her heart began beating fast. She noticed her hands were trembling, and when she looked up, her vision became blurry. Suddenly she was hot and her heart seemed to pound even faster and harder. Breath. Debbie encouraged. She tried to take a deep, but her breaths were sharper and shallow. Her vision got darker, and before she knew it, she was laying unconscious on the floor.